It wasn't just another night in Chicago. It was May 10th, 2025, past 2 a.m. on the north side. Two men lay bleeding outside of a quiet restaurant in Edgewater. One would die at White's Hospital, the other never made it out of emergency surgery. The victims? Munna Duke, once feared, once mythologized, the man King Von called King Kong, and Younggin, a soldier, a presence, and now a memory. That burning car on the far south side? It wasn't just a getaway vehicle. It was the erasing of evidence in a war that's claimed dozens. This wasn't random. This wasn't shocking to those who knew. It was expected, because this is how these stories always end. But how did we get here? How does a crew that once ruled rap, that once shaped culture, end up back in the dirt? Dead, indicted, or missing? How does Lil Durk, the face of OTF, go from Grammy nominations to federal handcuffs? How does King Von, the fastest rising drill artist in America, get shot down in Atlanta days before his album hits #1? How does Munna Duke, a street certified enforcer, survive a decade of war only to die outside a late night diner? This isn't just another drill story. This isn't just another rapper gone too soon. This is a case study in loyalty, blood, and destiny. Because when you live by the code of Get Back, you don't retire. You just run out of names to avenge. By the time most of America learned about OBlock, the violence had already gone federal. But in the shadows of the headlines, behind the rap lyrics, behind the diamond chains and the plaques, stood men like Munna Duke. Not just an associate of King Von, but allegedly a shot caller. One of the ones who made the calls before the triggers got pulled. In 2024, during their historic OBlock racketeering trial, federal prosecutors pointed to Munna Duke as a central figure in the enterprise, identifying him as Individual B in court documents. Testimony placed him among a small circle of gang leaders, the very people who prosecutors say greenlit hits, distributed pennants, and helped turn the OBlock name into something to be feared beyond Chicago. He wasn't just in the background, he was the background, watching, guiding, surviving. He had deep ties to King Von, who gave out over $100,000 worth of OBlock chains to his closest men. Duke was often seen wearing one, but as Von's career skyrocketed and his life spiraled into chaos, Duke stayed low, rarely seen, never forgotten. Street rumors suggest Munna Duke may have even had ties to one of the more infamous retaliatory killings in Chicago drill lore, the murder of 63rd member Can't Get Right. While no charges were ever filed, Duke's name floated in the whispers and diss tracks, a ghost in the trenches who moved like a general. And then came May 10th, 2025. It was supposed to be a quiet night in Edgewater, a north side neighborhood better known for college students and brunch more than bullets. But at 1:20 a.m., over 50 shots erupted outside of Pork Chop, a BBQ joint on Broadway. When the smoke cleared, Munna Duke was dead. So was another man, and a third was clinging to his life.
Turning to breaking news from overnight on Chicago's north side. Chicago police say 2 people were shot and killed and a third person was hurt. This happened early this morning near Broadway and Rosemont. It's still unknown what led up to that shooting. So far, no one is in custody.
The city shut down the restaurant immediately. Police tape flooded in the morning wind. No arrests, no suspects, just questions. How did one of the city's most notorious street figures end up ambushed miles from OBlock? And why now? That shooting didn't just end Duke's story. It set off alarms. Because if a boss like Munna Duke could be touched, it meant something bigger might be coming. In the background, Lil Durk, Von's mentor and Duke's longtime ally, sits in a Los Angeles jail accused of placing his own hit on Quando Rondo.
Chicago rapper Lil Durk is in police custody this morning.
And he was allegedly involved in a murder for hire plot. Roseanne is in studio with the very latest here. Roseanne?
There's so many different angles that fans and longtime drill listeners have been going and looking at in order to get an understanding of what happened to Younggin and Munna Duke. Get Back clearly has no expiration date, but who was responsible? King Von gunned down in a similar fashion in Atlanta, but as we'll see, OBlock's many battles in Chicago didn't die with Von, and they didn't end with Duke. In the aftermath of Munna Duke's assassination, the streets buzzed with speculation. Was this a random act or a calculated move in a long-standing feud? The name Can't Get Right resurfaced, a 63rd member whose murder had remained unsolved. This begs the question, could Duke's death be delayed retribution? But the web of retaliation didn't stop there. Federal indictments revealed a broader network of vengeance. Lil Durk, a prominent figure in the drill scene and close associate of King Von, faced charges for orchestrating a murder-for-hire plot against Quando Rondo, allegedly retaliation for King Von's death. Prosecutors detailed how Durk's associates traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles, funded by resources linked to his label, Only the Family. Their mission? Eliminate Quando Rondo. The attempt failed, but Quando Rondo's cousin, Lul Pab, was killed in the crossfire. This wasn't an isolated incident. Authorities connected Durk to another murder-for-hire plot in Chicago, targeting Stephon Mack, a gangster disciple leader. The alleged motive was to avenge the death of Durk's brother, Dante D. Thang Banks.
Prosecutors say Mack was gunned down outside the Youth Peace Center. The FBI linked the two men charged with Mack's murder to Durk, they say using texts and confidential informants. The feds believe this murder was revenge for the death of Lil Durk's brother.
The pattern was clear, a cycle of violence fueled by personal loss and street loyalty. As federal agents closed in, Durk attempted to flee, booking international flights. He was apprehended at the airport, bringing the retaliation web into the public eye. Back in Chicago, Munna Duke's death left a void in OBlock's hierarchy, with key figures either dead or incarcerated. Questions loomed about the future of the faction. Would the cycle of retribution continue, or was this the beginning of the end? By the time King Von publicly gave Munna Duke the nickname King Kong, it wasn't just a term of endearment. It was a coded salute, a street coronation. In OBlock, respect isn't just earned, it's forged in blood, sealed by silence and echoed through years of unsolved shootings. Though Duke never officially lived in Parkway Gardens, his roots ran deep, just outside its borders. He grew up around the corner, near Randolph Towers, known as the Calumet Building, a BD stronghold during the 90s and the early 2000s. That building birthed some of the same kids who later put OBlock on the map. As a child, Duke's world was already grim, overcrowded homes, sleeping on floors, and constant uncertainty. In interviews, he admitted he never expected to live to be 18 years old. And for Munna Duke, school wasn't just school. It was where future gang members formed allegiances and rivalries. He walked the same halls as kids who would later become Lamron, 600, Front Street, even 051 Young Money. It was a boiling point of tension long before shots were ever fired. Duke was already wrapped up in the system. Multiple stints behind bars pulled him away from the rise of Chief Keef and later King Von's explosion onto the rap scene. But when he was free, Duke was all in. No distractions, no second chances, just retaliation. When OBlock's beloved T-Roy was killed, a spark was lit. What followed became known in the streets as the summer of Get Back. It started with Lil Ho, a Jarrell City member shot down on May 14, 2017, near 62nd and Eberhart. 4 figures emerged from the shadows. At least one shooter allegedly stood over the body and finished the job. The streets whispered the same names, Gleesh and Duke. Only days later, Jamo, a known GD, was ambushed while driving on 59th. Again, no arrests, but again, the rumors pointed at a familiar roster, 600's Cap and McAdoo, OBlock's HK, and Munna Duke. After several months had passed, blood spilled again. Poppy, a Taekwon World affiliate, was gunned down while working at a candy warehouse. In the streets, HK was blamed for the shooting. The shooter was tall, masked with dreads, a description that, according to speculation, matched Duke more than it did HK, though HK famously flaunted the T-Roy pennant afterward and earned the nickname Headshot King. Now what's odd is Poppy's crew seemed to grieve Duke's death years later harder than they had grieved HK's, fueling suspicion that Duke may have played a larger role than people had thought. Then came June 16, 2018. 2 people were shot outside of a restaurant on 63rd. One of the victims was a 3-year-old janitor, an innocent caught in the crossfire. The other was Get Right, a well-known and feared STL EBT member. Surveillance video showed 2 shooters running up and unloading without mercy. One of the gunmen kept firing even after Get Right collapsed. And once again, no charges, but online speculation exploded. All fingers pointed to 2 names, Muwap and Munna Duke. The same month, King Von tweeted about a new op pack. A veteran BD posted a photo with Duke and Muwap, captioned with the phrase, "You better get right or get left," which sounds like a play on words, but a lot of people took this as a subtle threat and as a subtle hint that these are the two people who might have been involved in the shooting of Can't Get Right. Fans dissected every image. One showed Muwap and Duke mimicking a shooting pose, with Muwap pointing his finger like a gun at the camera and Duke aiming towards the ground as if he's standing over a body. The caption read, "Y'all don't even know what type of bond we got." In the streets, loyalty isn't something you talk about, it's something you show. And that summer, Duke showed exactly what kind of bond he had with his brothers. But with every legend comes a price. It began in the early hours of May 10th, 2025 in Chicago's Edgewater neighborhood. Munna Duke, 31 years old, and Younggin, 28 years old, both prominent figures from OBlock, were among patrons leaving a late night restaurant on the 6300 block of North Broadway when gunfire erupted. A drive-by shooting left both men fatally wounded and a third individual injured.
Just out of Edgewater, an overnight shooting has left 2 people dead. There's another individual hurt.
Munna Duke succumbed to a chest wound at Wise Hospital, while Younggin, struck multiple times, was pronounced dead at St. Francis, despite resuscitation efforts. A stolen Infiniti Q50, believed to be used by the assailants, was later found burning on the city's far south side. In the end, the summer of Get Back came with no real winners, just memories soaked in loss, stories rewritten by indictments, and street legends carved in gravestones. King Von, the heartbeat of OBlock's rap resurgence, dead and gone at 26, shot outside a nightclub in Atlanta, surrounded by chaos, with his closest friends watching it all unfold. A street general turned rap star, never given the time to become anything more. Munna Duke, once called King Kong by Von himself, gunned down in a drive-by shooting in Chicago, the city he called home. A man built from trauma, whose loyalty ran deeper than rap, deeper than the politics, gone without a final word. Younggin, another soldier in OBlock's army, cut down alongside Duke, just steps from the restaurant's doorway. Just another day, another headline, another family changed forever. And now Lil Durk, the last star standing, arrested by the feds. The voice of OTF silenced in a courtroom, just as his enemies predicted. Millions earned, a legacy built, but still tethered to a past too heavy to outrun. What began as a brotherhood rooted in survival ended in tragedy. The rap dreams that once promised escape became soundtracks to Indictment. And the Get Back that was meant to honor the fallen only invited more loss. The streets don't make room for legends, they swallow them. And what's left are songs, rumors, and unhealed wounds. Because in this story, loyalty came with a cost, and every name that rose eventually had to fall.